Right, declare the meeting open. Councillor Arthur, could you lead us in prayer, please?
Almighty God, we acknowledge that we have a responsibility to look after your creation, especially the region we call Barcaldine Regional Council. We are also conscious that our decisions are going to affect deeply the lives, land and property of the people we come here to serve. Remind us to exercise respect with each of our fellow councillors, staff and for the people of our region. Help us in the meeting to act wisely, justly and intelligently in all our deliberations. Thank you, Lord, for the privilege of both leading and serving and assisting us to do these well. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Councillors, I have some condolences. Colin Whitfield, formerly of Barcaldine and Muttarborough, Anthony Craft of Aramac, Elizabeth Ferguson, formerly of Barcaldine Downs, Leslie Brooke, Nee Boland, formerly of Aramac, and Ken Myers, also of Aramac.
Mr Mayor, I'd just like to, Mrs Karen Halls.
Karen Halls, former councillor.
Yep.
Former councillor Karen Halls of the Jericho Shire Council, formerly of Alpha. Any staff or further? Actually, observe a moment of silence, please. Thank you. I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land upon which we meet and minister, and also their elders past, present and emerging. Councillors, MPIs and COIs. Councillor Plum.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I have a COI and 3.3.5 with the special holidays, as I am unexecutive of the West Tech holidays. And I'd like to ask you if I could stay in the meeting.
I'd like to move. Sorry, am I in order still? Yes, I am. I thought I forgot to confirm the minutes again. I will move that you stay in the room for that and vote on deliberations related to that, Councillor Plum.
Thank you.
Seconded, Councillor Peoples. Those in favour? Carried.
That's me, Mr Mayor.
That's it. Councillor Peoples.
Mr Mayor, I'll declare a MPI in 3.4.4, 3.6.1, 3.8.1, and I declare that I have an MPI in 3.4.4, 3.6.1, 3.8.1 as I could stand to gain a benefit or loss depending on the outcome of Council's consideration of this matter. And due to that, my business would possibly supply in some of those reports, and I'll be dealing with this declared MPI by leaving the meeting while the matter is discussed by the Council.
Thank you. Councillor Gleeson.
Mr Mayor, can I just go on? I just want to make one other comment there. Can I also just ask all my co-councillors, or anyone in the room for that matter, if at any stage during a meeting that you feel that I could have possibly an MPI or COI, please feel free to let me know. You won't offend me, and I'd rather you tell me when I find out later on. So if you think at any stage that there's something there that I shouldn't know about, please make me aware.
I should add that to that, councillor Peoples, that it's actually councillor's legal responsibility to do that exact thing. So you're as deficient in your duty as the councillor who doesn't declare the NPI if you're aware of it and don't make moves to address it. Or at least make the meeting aware of the potential. Councillor Gleeson, do you have any NPIs or CIs?
Mayor, I don't believe so.
Yeah, I think. That's all right.
Mr Mayor, as I said previously, as long as we're only receiving the report and the conversation don't go into greater depth, at this stage I don't feel I have any NPIs or CIs.
And to flag the report that you're most concerned about, if it
The engineering.
is 361.
The
Morning,
workshop
Councillor Rogers. I'm sorry, I started at the other end today, but only to give you time to be ready.
Yeah, my apologies for being
fine.
late. I don't even have an excuse.
That's fine.
I thought it was 9 o'clock, so I thought it was a half an hour.
The last person in the room you need to apologise is to the chair, because I've been plenty of times later than you are, so your co-councillors accept your apology. Do you have any NPIs or CIs?
I don't believe that I do. Probably as long as, same with Dan, it doesn't branch off, the engineering report doesn't branch off into.
Discussing individual projects.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think I have any NPIs or CIs, to the best of my knowledge. Declaration of personal gifts and benefits, councillors. Nothing has been received. Can I have somebody move that we receive the minutes of the 24th of June general meeting, please? Councillor Rogers, Councillor Gleeson. Any errors, omissions or alterations that councillors would like to discuss with those minutes? Being none, somebody moves that we adopt them, please. Councillor Peoples, Councillor Plum seconds. All in favour? Carry. I didn't point out that Jess is taking the minutes today, so we'll work through this meeting suitably. No councillors have petitions to present. 3.1, confidential reports. 3.1.1, debt recovery. Councillors, is there an intention to go into closed session to discuss anybody on this list? I'm going to ask that one be taken off the list, but I'm happy to stay in open session for that. Officer who did the report, Paula, would you like to go into closed session for any particular reason? Is there any reason that you need to discuss confidentially with us? Stephen? No, right. The resolution is that council writes off the bad debts as per the list that we've received confidentially. Councillors, the only thing I would like to flag is trust the officer's recommendation on all of this. However, I'd like to remove GVK's outstanding debt from that list. It's been a long-standing debt. It's a significant amount of money for a potential developer in our region. They're a interest in a functioning mine lease application. In the absence of extremely strong evidence to the contrary, I think they should maintain a debt on their books.
Mr Mayor, can I also add to that? Can I ask a question about the bottom one, the private works and overground allotment? Is that something we can't pursue?
I'm assuming attempts have been made.
Yeah, that's been on the books for quite some time, and with no progress. And because it's such a small amount, it's not really worth pursuing. It's under 500.
Because the cost of pursuing it is more significant than what we're recovering.
Yeah.
To you, Mr Mayor, may I make a comment on that? Because I do know I've had conversations with that gentleman.
Yes.
He believes the works that were carried out for that were done before he had an opportunity to do it, and the works were done before the notice expiry date.
So removing it not only potentially clears up a bad debt, but it resolves a dispute almost.
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Councillors, any further comments, questions?
Through you, Mr Mayor, even though they are small relatively, I think we probably still need to keep a track of them so that in future the same people or entities aren't repeating their debt and knowing that they can go up to $500 and BRC will basically write it off because it's too expensive to follow up.
No. 4 lots of 500 becomes 2,000 pretty
Quite
quickly.
quickly. Even if it's just a register retained of previous bad debtors, so that if private works are asked for, then there may be some concerns raised about previous payments or non-payments.
Not sure as to the style of how we do that. Steve, would you give consideration to that perhaps, please?
Yes. Yeah.
Do I have a resolution? Is that attached list now going to exclude the contribution for digital TV?
Yes, I agree.
With that, yeah.
Councillors?
Yeah.
Go on.
Mr Mayor, can we just maybe put in there that the rest are flagged? So that if, as Dan said, if they come up in the system as, can we flag them or something?
I'm not sure of the technical basis by how we can even legally do that once we've written the debt off. I think more of it was, Councillor Arthur was maybe reminding us so that we know internally, but I don't know system-wise, and if we resolve it there, I'll take advice as to whether we flag them, whether we indicate that we're going to flag these people.
I think obviously we can have a manual system to keep track. I'm not sure what we can actually do in the system, Jenny.
Flag note on there.
Yeah.
Okay, so Councillor Plums asks that the resolution includes commentary that Council agrees to write off the bad debts as per the attached list and what records be retained.
Yes.
Are you happy to move that resolution?
In the future, and are you going to make a separate resolution for the GDK?
No, we just disregard that. They'd be deleted from this list, so they're not part of the attached list anymore. We won't name them. The debts don't individually get named in the resolution. Is that correct? Or
we should probably put the total amount, the bad debts totaling,
X, Y, Z.
whatever that figure is.
3, 4, 5, 50.
Right, bad debts totaling. So it becomes later.
our bookmaker over there should be able to add that up that quick.
So you're going like mad there on the
It would if it was receipts after the end of the big day. Someone check my maths, but I believe the total comes to $1,436.36. And council will amend that individually after the resolution's passed if we need to. We're all in agreement that it's the entire list, less the contribution for digital TV. Councillor Plum has moved that resolution. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hanson. All in favour? Carried 7-0. 3, 2, 1. Correct? Yeah. Questions, councillors? That's just my information report. Just for your information, councillors, I do that supposed to be weekly, but it runs into nearly fortnightly. I do it using social media, a bit of a diary to let residents know. I have decided that I will circulate that because not everybody's on social media. I'll try and remember to circulate that in an email format to councillors so that you can see it at the same time as the public. This is a more detailed analysis of what we've done in that intervening period since our last meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to let you know that I had a rep from Townsville in yesterday that reads that your report on social media every time you do it and said it's
From
great.
Townsville.
Yeah.
Very good.
And also, when you're compiling your next lot of, when you go to your other towns for visits, could you put it in the Gazette? A couple of people this week have asked, said that they didn't know and they'd like to come and meet you.
It was actually in 2 gazettes.
They just said it wasn't, they'd read the Gazette, it wasn't in there, and I just thought.
We'll perhaps draw it to their attention differently, but it was definitely on the front page. Second paragraph.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, they just said.
No, sorry, it's not your fault. No, we'll
Just passing it on that people are reading the Gazette.
what we might do, make some more times and make it into a bigger box or something. Angela's put it doing that style like so to draw people's attention to it more broadly.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, I'll ask one. Your last meeting with the Premier on COVID-19.
Yes.
What's her, where are we at with the borders at the moment?
So they actually cancelled last week's meeting on us. I anticipated probably because they're worried about the borders and they didn't want to feel big questions. So the very last meeting we had now almost 3 weeks ago. I think her position is that we can open the borders so long as we've got the capacity within our health system to handle any cases that come our way. She's been under immense pressure around tourism-related ventures, especially on the Gold Coast and in far north Queensland. Her more pressing priority, though, has been working with the Treasurer around kickstarting industry. And the longer the border shutdown went, other industry other than tourism, and it was starting to significantly impact on infrastructure-related projects as well because it just couldn't get the key contractors back in. So, yeah, that's where she was at then. I think there's been a lot of change. I hesitate to repeat her words then because there's been a significant change in the stance with Victoria since last she met with us.
No, Mr. Mayor, I just think we've got to be very cautious at this stage with what's happening south of the border until, you know, we've done a very good job to date. And I think we need to be very cautious, and she needs to be very cautious with regards to our borders at this stage.
I think just public, really, you see this week she moved to try and get the border crossings taken a little further south to ease traffic congestion. So I don't think she has any intention of softening that. I read this morning in the paper all open source stuff, but there's 145 people being tracked in Queensland that they've detected that they've been filling out incorrect information on their border crossings. So I think there's a significant degree of vigilance. Yes, some are going to get through, but they're starting to track them down and identify them. And as word of that gets out, you know, blokes are getting caught trying to hide in the boots of cars, all that sort of stuff. So Premier's taking it very seriously, and more, I guess more importantly, so is the people that she's giving that direction to, QPS. They've really ramped up. And just something for anyone who's talking about SES, something I didn't know until last week when I met with Darryl King, who's an Assistant Commissioner for, I'm not even sure if I had that in it, yeah, it is, QFES. For every police officer on the front line, these border crossings, there's 3 SES. Like, so on top of that, there's military, but there is genuine volunteers manning the state border, undertaking not just logistical support, like they're not just making cups of tea and coffee, they're doing, you know, putting cars through, parking cars. So the SES is playing a massive role, and
they did put out a call for support, but the Commissioner wouldn't accept people from this part of the region of the state for two reasons. One, ever mindful of sending it west, the virus, if one of them was to contract it, and two, very mindful of the fact that the RACS is very small and limited to the few that we might need to manage a disaster, so they're managing volunteer fatigue. So he's very concerned about the amount of SES that are on the front line, because they are volunteers and they're getting no recognition. The most you might see is the SES banner in the background at one of the border crossings, but it's all police in the front line. So if you're talking to anyone, any friends and colleagues in the south, it would be very beneficial for those people in the SES that are doing a lot of the work that they get a little bit of recognition, because at the moment they're getting precisely zero, and as is the want of a volunteer, I know, but I'm very unaware of that.
I understand there's been a lot of pressure from media about the economy and what have you, but I'm mindful of the economy too, but if we have an outbreak like Victoria have, our economy will be even slower starting.
So, which will lead into the next report, the CEO's report. Anyway, Stephen would just like to give you an update where we are internally.
Yeah. So through you, Mr. Mayor, and Councillor Peoples, that's a very good question, and certainly every in-house event that we have, whether it's the Joint Consultative Committee meeting or the Workplace Health and Safety Committee meeting yesterday, I start all of those events with trying to lift awareness about COVID and ensuring that we don't have complacency. At all of our employee sessions that we did last week, I also spoke about the need for people to be aware of what our procedures are and advise that our regimes around temperature testing on a Monday, our hygiene practices, our distancing practices, our staggered starts at the depot, all of those things I've pretty much said is that's how we operate until further notice, and that don't expect that you're going to see any change in the next 3 to 6 months. It could be, a matter of a year or 2 years that we have to keep on doing this, and certainly flag the concerns around what's happened in Melbourne, now New South Wales as well, and the borders being reopened and the flood of tourists that we're seeing out here. So we've really tried within council to, if there was any complacency, to put a bit more fear out there around we just cannot afford to be complacent at all, because if there was an outbreak, you're exactly right, like what we've seen in Victoria would just be catastrophic, not just to our health system, but to our local economy. It would just destroy our region. So from a council perspective, we're trying our hardest to keep our awareness at a high level. We had a COVID action team meeting last week, and we'll schedule and have another one this week and continue to discuss any strategies. One of the things that came out of that the district manager in Barcaldine is following up is that we're procuring 20 plus public sanitising stations that'll be located at locations around the region. We'll also have surplus of those that we can loan to people when events start running again, that we can provide 6 or 8 sanitising stations that they can use at the camp draft or the races or wherever it might be. So we're certainly still at the critical point and open to any other suggestions and feedback that you have from a community perspective to make sure that we keep that awareness high and that we don't become complacent and fall back to something happening.
Can I have somebody move that council receives my report? Councillor Plum, Councillor Gleeson seconds. All in favour? 7-0. I jumped in there because I hadn't done that, so we're now back to the CEO. So if anyone has any questions about that COVID update or the CEO's information report generally. Stephen, is there anything in your report you'd like to draw to our attention before questions come your way?
Mr. Mayor, just the employee communication sessions were very positive, travelling around the region last week. Our format has remained the same, that between myself, the Deputy CEO, the Chief Engineer, we provide an update on a range of different matters, and then we also take questions and feedback at the end. And then we also hang around if anyone's got any one-on-one feedback. So it's fair to say that when we reflect back on, when we started doing this 2 years ago, it's a totally different mood and people are a lot more comfortable now listening to the information. I think we have a greater level of respect that we're delivering on what we say that we're going to do, and they're more comfortable to ask questions both in an open group and also one-on-one. So yeah, while it takes our whole week to do it, it's an extremely valuable exercise, and also gives us the opportunity to have a look at various jobs and other things around the region and roads while we're out and about. So that's really the main thing. It's just, it continues to be a extremely busy time with visitors, and it doesn't look like slowing down over the next few months. So that's really my main point. Thank you, Matt.
Question?
Stephen, did you get many questions or issues travelling around?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, previously the Deputy CEO has always taken a list of all the questions, and then we either answer the questions on the spot or we put them back through the employee bulletin. There was probably the least amount of questions. There was some comments, there was some compliments, and there was nothing of major. There were no major issues that were raised.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just with respect to the recruitment, is it possible for the councillors to receive a summary, more so just the recent recruitment drive that we've had on, and as long as it doesn't cross any confidentiality, I'm not talking about to the extent of names, but just the numbers of applicants and where we are with the status of some of those? Is that possible?
How do you?
Just so that we can get because we've had multiple positions advertised, and I understand some of them have had to be re-advertised. So is that down to 0 applicants or not suitable applicants, or because just in some of the other workshops that we've had, there's been anecdotal evidence about just a general struggle to recruit even the entry-level jobs outside of council. Like it seems to be an issue across the region, finding or having enough suitable applicants for jobs inside council, outside council.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll probably have to consider that just from a HR and operational perspective, and I'll do my best to come back with some information for you. But just to expand on, obviously our reports are prepared in advance, so you'll see in my report that there's a number of positions that are listed there. So the occupational therapist in Barcaldine, there was no applicants for that. There were a number of people that inquired as to that position and followed up for more information, but no one applied. The position in Muttabara, there's been 2 applicants for that. It's been held up because one of the people who needs to be involved in the interview panel in Muttabara has been on leave for a week, so he's only back this week, so that'll progress. The labourers in Aramac, I think there was about 8 applicants. They've been reviewed by the interview panel, and interviews are being set for those people, and they look quite reasonable. So I think we'll get 3 there. Barcaldine, we advertised for 3 labourers. Those interviews were held last Thursday. There were multiple applicants. I think there were 12 applicants for those roles. I signed off on on the recommendation on the 3 of them this morning, and there's also been a roller operator in Alpha that has been successful for the position down there. So I suppose really it's the more specialist positions like the occupational therapist where we're having trouble. The labourer positions that we've advertised recently, we've had good numbers and we've had good quality of people. So, but I'm happy to look at what I can provide in terms of
Mr. Mayor, that probably covers
information.
that probably covers the summary that I would have asked for.
Councillor Gleeson, you had a question?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the employee communication sessions, are the contractors involved in that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, it's only direct employees that come. The contractors come to the induction day at the start of the year, but not to these individual sessions.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Mr Mayor, I do have one about the health and safety section, but I'll leave it for the
Sure,
health and
come to
safety
you.
report.
Thank you. Can I have somebody move to receive Stephen's report, please? Councillor Gleeson, second, Councillor, sorry,
I do have another question I've just found down the bottom here when I scroll up, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Arthur has seconded that report. All in favour? Carried? Yes, Councillor.
Mr Mayor, mine is probably more a statement, and it's about, see Stephen attended a meeting with AQTA to discuss council's membership, and I realise that you and the CEO are probably having more meetings to follow up with AQTA, but from where I sit, Mr Mayor, I just want to pass on to you that I don't think we've had value there for a long time, so I'm happy to support either way you go there.
We'll have more detail for that following the meeting tomorrow.
Okay.
CIB, can I have somebody move that we receive the report, please? Councillor Plum, seconded. Councillor Hanson. All in favour? Carried. I have two issues here. Can I just ask, Stephen, that between you and your district manager, we have another look at the request from the second, so we had it formally via minutes and now via a letter, the Dr. Rada Memorial Museum request. If we can just look at what our options are there about integrating a position perhaps that makes be suitable to that, but also fill some other role on council perhaps, or whatever your options are.
Yeah, so Mr Mayor, the thoughts are that at the August council meeting, the district manager for Aramac and Muttaburra was going to prepare a complete report to come back to council detailing the options, the costs and so on.
Right. And can we have somebody organise a meeting, please, for me with RFDS to discuss the proposal for the Muttaburra Strip, please?
Yes.
And can we have Rick available for that meeting? Please, it will be technical.
Yeah.
Any other comments, councillors? Questions?
Through you, Mr Mayor, it's semi-related to the flying doctors, but not quite. I had a resident come to talk to me about maybe an increase in the inspections for the fuel tanks out here at the Barcaldine airstrip, and the concern was over the flying doctors using our airport as refuelling. Do we have any information about an increase in costs in the fuel tank inspection costs?
The fuel is the fuel is operated by GBA, so they it's totally controlled by them. I'm not sure what the issue is, but no one from GBA has raised any issues with me. Yeah, so basically council has nothing to do with the fuel operations. It's all contracted out.
Yeah, right. But it may have an impact on our, not really the access, but the serviceability of the flying doctors if they use our airstrip for refuelling. As in timing of flights. No, well, because the concern was that the price for the inspection of the fuel tanks out of the aerodrome is quadrupling multiple times, and the frequency is coming down. And that may have an effect on the serviceability of the fuel tanks here, and then for the access for the flying doctors to refuel here. So that may affect their transit routes or being able to fly from Longreach to go somewhere else, or to Rockhampton.
Yeah, I think we can take it on notice and follow it up with GBA.
Yeah. Well, if council's not aware, or GBA haven't come to council.
We haven't. We're not aware of anything, so we will commit to follow that up.
Just through you, Mr Mayor, on regards to that, I had a visit to the same way. I believe they're going to double the price of the actual inspection. I might be wrong, but I believe it was 50 grand for 10 years, now they're talking 100 grand for 5 years. Now, I actually 4 times for the inspections.
Well, it was a multiple figure. The frequency was coming right, sorry, Councillor Hanson, the frequency was coming right down, and the per unit price was going up as well, so it was.
I actually deal with 2 or 3 of those companies that do that sort of work through my work. And if need be, you can come back to me and I can sort of do a bit of investigation on price-wise to see. I actually do have a mate that does that as well. And he is willing to come out and do it.
And sorry that we don't have any answers and we're
No,
not with
it's-
each other, but it's something that we don't.
I probably need to
Yeah.
apologise through you, Mr Mayor, that I didn't bring it up prior to the meeting.
If you need help with inspections, I can probably do a bit of investigation through the people that I deal with.
Take it on notice and see how we go. 333, Community Care Services Report. Sorry. Yep, can I have somebody move that we receive that report, please? Councillor Plum, second Councillor Arthur. In favour? Carried. 7-0. So what you're looking at here, councillors, is obviously finalisation report as well. Brett, have you got anything to lead them through? Or Stephen?
Sorry.
I think the notes, Mr Mayor, that Tony Walsh provides at the bottom of the front page provide a good overview of where the year's finished and why there'll be an adjustment in relation to grant income having to be refunded. Obviously NDIS continues to perform extremely well and is growing at the rate that we thought it would grow. And again, this is the first time that we've had, this is now our first full year of results, which is now going to provide us tracking as we start the new financial year to actually really assess our performance year on year. In terms of what grant income is going to be refunded, I'd have to ask Jenny's probably best placed to provide any detail that council wants on that. But I would suspect it would be the normal home mods program.
It's around 150, yes, right?
Yep.
To go back, Jenny,
Sorry,
it's 150 to go back.
that's been started.
Now, I know that the Community Care Coordinator implemented a couple of different initiatives to try and get in and spend more of that money. There was some path projects at different people's properties to try and proactively spend more than what we have in the past so that we're not giving it back. But we're still in the situation that there's money that's got to be sent back.
Any further questions?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, can we just have, I think what Tony's done here is, it's great in each of the different areas, but could we just have a bit of a summary where we might just put that, there's a plus figure beside each of these, down the bottom, just a little summary, unless I've missed it, and then tell us what's going back and...
You won't, in your monthly reports, you won't know what's going back.
No, this is just the end.
Just the annual.
Yeah.
Mr Mayor, we usually don't find out till we do the annual return how much we've got to send back, so it's
So at this stage, it's a projection.
It's only an estimate, yeah. Once you've done the return, because sometimes they allow you to keep some of the money to use for future projects, so it's definitely only an estimate at this stage.
No, that's all we need, Rich.
334, somebody move we receive the economic development report, please. Councillor Plum, second Councillor Hanson. Those in favour? Carried. Stephen, anything to add?
Mr Mayor, no, only that, all of these projects keep on progressing well. Obviously the big one is the renewable energy hub, which is obviously consuming a fair bit of our time in still trying to incubate that project. Just yesterday we had meetings with Professor Garno, Queensland University of Technology. So I suppose it's still ticking along nicely. We will schedule when we get closer to the commercial feasibility study being finished in September, we'll schedule a full update for council from Professor Garno to make sure that, council hears first what the outcomes are.
Part of this economic development report that's not listed, but it's new and evolving. When I was in Brisbane, we met with the Queensland University of Technology, and that meeting happened again yesterday. Professor Garno was at part of that meeting, or at that meeting, and participated in part of it. There's a really exciting opportunity that I hope to be able to bring the council at next month's meeting for our council to enter into a formal partnership with the university to provide access for our businesses, individuals, innovators, entrepreneurs in our region to the upper echelons of one of Queensland's leading universities in this space. It's not a costed or funded thing, it's just so that we can have a formal connection from our community to a university whose number one focus is on evolving and innovating in agriculture, moving through the next 25 to 30 years. It's their sole focus within this team. The Futurists Department is what it's called. They deal with stuff like renewable energy and how it can be transformed, but they also deal with vertically integrated, low water demand agricultural production for fodder or alternative. There's a whole alternative cropping. So there's a whole bunch of stuff there. The memorandum of understanding that we discussed yesterday is going to be relatively binding, but mainly that if we're aware of people in our patch that could do with the research of a major university providing them some access to information or technology, then we know who within that university to ring, and they'll vice versa. If they have field sites or tests that they want to undertake, they'll do that in our patch, as opposed to perhaps some others. They have a very good relationship with the Redlands City Council and has a lot of test sites for a lot of their innovation there. So they're somewhat more accustomed to dealing with local governments than we are to dealing with universities. But the feeling that I get from them is they're very, very keen to work, and certainly their presentations to me, we would be keen to have their government relations team visit when that MOU is ready and pitch to you, to the whole council, but just giving you earlier warning that we're working on developing that partnership, and I think because it's not just going to benefit one initiative in one area, it'll benefit a range of initiatives right across our regional council areas. So, any further questions?
Mr Mayor, sorry, the only other thing to add, which isn't on there as well, is just Dr Matt Hearn, who's been doing the work up in Muttaburra, has been out here for 3 weeks and had a extremely successful visit, and will be back in September to continue the work that he's doing and oversee the fit out of the interpretation centre. So, as much as I can really say at the moment is that it was a very successful visit. So we're really, I think the timing of the interpretation centre fit out and the work that he's doing is lining up for our 2021 tourist season. Is going to be hugely successful in Muttaburra, that's for sure, with the product that's going to be there.
335. We won't move this straight away.
Questions, comments, thoughts? Tom? Councillor, please.
Mr Mayor, why can't Barcaldine Regional Council all go for West Tech weekend, West Tech middle of week? Why is Alpha got to be different and Marlborough be different?
Well, Alpha have always asked for that. They don't want their show not to be a holiday because no one will go. Because it's midweek, see, it's Wednesday. So your school kids can't go, they've got school. So the show society has, because these holidays are show holidays, of course, they've always asked for it. So that's why there, and Marlborough, I believe, the same. They've got with Marlborough, but they've always had Melbourne Cup.
They historically had a big Melbourne Cup day in Marlborough. I don't know if it's as big as it used to be these days, but and I think, Mr Mayor, I think it's up to the communities, to give us some feedback on what day they'd like to have as their public holiday.
Problem is, we have to have this submitted by the 21st of August, which technically is 2 days after our next meeting, so we can do it that way. We can put this out. I guess it was, officers have formulated it this way because this was the way the communities indicated they wanted to go this year. West Tech's been cancelled. Well, not cancelled, West Tech's on next year, so this is just mirroring their request for last year. This year, sorry. Jericho have historically had Alpha Show off as well, like this is a change.
Yeah, I think they mentioned that they wanted that in
They did.
the community forums that they would like West Tech.
They did.
And Aramac was historically Melbourne Cup Day, and I think it was a request from community that we change that to West Tech this year too. So,
Councillors, we're in your hands. Do you want to adopt a form of resolution, or would you like to put it out for public consultation and adopt it in August?
well, Mr Mayor, can I just move that we leave it on the table and leave our DMs just consult and make sure that we've got it right, and we can adopt it in at our August meeting.
I agree with that. Councillors, have anything? Let's move. Councillor Peoples, seconded Councillor Gleeson, that the resolution be deferred to the August meeting following further consultation. Following further consultation. Now, the time frames, councillors, before you vote on this are very tight. So officers, can I just ask, will we be able to get it done?
Mr Mayor, yeah, it does say in the letter it's an online form, so it should be.
Right?
Yep.
Good. Which we don't, otherwise we miss out. We don't get them at all. And given what's happening in Longreach about them not giving their public holidays at the moment, I'd suggest to the 6 of you over there, it'd be a very bad idea that we don't give some public holidays next year.
So Mr Mayor, we can do this and with the timeline?
I'm advising so, yes. Yep. All in favour? Carried. Insert the Facebook site in Western Queensland.
Don't you mean us 7, Mr Mayor?
Oh, well, I'm in your hands. I can't move and second and vote on it all together. 336, Burdekin Important Flood Resilience Strategy. Somebody move we receive that report, please. Councillor Peoples, second Councillor Rogers. All in favour? Carried. To give you an update, there's that strategy was stalled somewhat by COVID, as everything has been. However, face-to-face visitations with those councils who haven't had it have been rescheduled. There's a working group being formed, which will sit below the strategic group that I sit on. That working group delegates for us are Damien and is Craig providing assistance? Yep. Craig Newendorf. So essentially most of the work that we feed into that has happened. The next thing we will see is the Get Ready strategy workshopping occur across our area with a pilot program that's never been done before. Right, any questions? Being none, 341, can I have something moved that we receive Brett's information report? Councillor Plum, seconder. Councillor Peoples, carried, 7-0. Questions? Yes.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the new versions of vendor panel, are they already there, Brett? Is that just there's been a change already that I noticed?
Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure if that's been implemented yet. I don't think so.
So what is the change that we're going to?
So, Mr. Mayor, the actual operation of vendor panel will be exactly the same, but I suppose the front page will be more like a dashboard and a portal look. So just a modernised look with helpful tips about how to use the software, as well as things like the procurement policy will be there. So I haven't seen the final version because they're still working on it. We'll be one of the first councils to implement this.
I just noticed early this week that there's probably near the last page, there's a section where you just put in the one price or an itemised price. There's two different sections that you can.
So that must be that. I would say that's separate to this concept.
No, I just noticed there's been a slight change there. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, can I just ask, Brett, the Barcode on Waste landfill for 300,000, will that complete it?
Mr. Mayor, we are hoping so. That so we do have a schedule of works that we had used for the budget, and so that schedule of works was the 300,000 that we put into the budget. So yes, our aim is to have it completed this year and have the waste facility operational.
And the disability access, is that to the building 6719?
So that is a number of projects. So there's disability access to the pool in Barkey and Aramac, and the disability toilet in the showgrounds at Barcode. The two disability access ramps are not part of that funding. Because the disabled lift for the pool, it's about $30,000 on its own, plus about $65,000 for the showgrounds toilets.
Thank you.
Further? Councillor Peoples.
Mr Mayor, Brett, you've got a meeting with potential developers. What's going on there?
Mr Mayor, yep, so that was a preliminary meeting with a local business owner who just wanted to get some advice about potential development. So there's been no application lodged. He will be meeting with the town planners when they're on site next week.
Okay. And the Pine Hill and Alpha Cemetery project.
Yes.
What's happening
So, Mr Mayor, we had a meeting with the local tourism group. They wanted to give us an update of where they're at. So at Pine Hill, and plus they wanted some more assistance, some in-kind assistance. So Pine Hill, where they put the shed, there was a bit of a lip where they stepped into it, so they wanted a concrete, basically a ramp, but just a small ramp to walk up so people didn't trip. Some garden beds, help doing garden beds. We've also got to put up the water tank.
No, they're doing the water tank, we've got to do the goal.
Isn't it? So the goal is that the water tank's at Pine Hill. So an update, so they've got a grant from Gaming Machine to do a lot of this work.
Yep.
But they just wanted more assistance, so they still have to put up the water tank so they can water the garden. And at the Alpha Cemetery, there's the newer cemetery and the old cemetery. So in the old cemetery, there's a pergola to go up. It's on site at the depot. They ordered a kit form, which it's going to be a bit more work to put that up because it's very much a kit.
We are assisting that because it was raised at some of our community forums. This was previously.
We've been assisting all along. Damien's been working with them. The gardeners, the crew in Alpha have been working with them. But it's so you've got two sides and lots of little components of the project. There's also a fence at the front of the old cemetery they want to put up. We've got to put water on. But we can't put the fence up till they build the pergola. So I think within a couple of months it'll all be completed.
Thanks, Brett.
Mr Mayor, I can give you a bit of an update too. They've just actually poured a slab for the sandstone as well. It's been erected at the old cemetery in Alpha. The whole idea of their project, they bought, I think the grant was around $30,000, and they bought these big sandstones that they got out of Yeppoon from one of the, they put those up to put all the plaques on there as well. So they're in the process with that. It's been installed as of last week, and they also poured the concrete slab around it as well at the old cemetery, and we're just waiting now for the contractor to do the pergola. So that should hopefully be done within the next week. Yeah.
Just there, if anyone's going to Emerald, it's only a K off the Pine Hill Road where the new bitumen is. It's only a minute to drive in there, and you can have a look what they've done.
With the exception of the garden bed, the Pine Hill facility is finished, and Alpha's less than a month off completion. And the vast majority of it's been, most of the money's been theirs, but there's now these little things on the side, like the rebate, because there's a trip factor on the concrete slab, and just some little things that they are worried about that they're asking council to assist with if they can.
Thanks, David.
Can I just ask one question, Mr Mayor, with regards to how we're going with the water licence?
Mr Mayor, yeah, so that's an ongoing negotiation, so we're still waiting for an answer.
They looked very favourable when they were here with demonstration.
But until we get something in writing, there's no, we're still negotiating.
Further questions? 342, can I have somebody move we receive the planning and development report? Councillor Plum, seconded Councillor Peoples. Those in favour? Carried. Questions?
There's no value of works on the second line item. It's a $0 value. So,
Yep, so Mr Mayor, to Councillor Arthur, so whenever we have a plumbing application, there is no dollar value. So dollar values are only for building work, so we just list them as it's only a connection of a water, connection of a water main, water service. Yeah, so the value of work is only applies to building work or an MCU or town planning.
Further questions? Three, four, three. Can I have somebody move we receive the report, please? Councillor Gleeson, seconded Councillor Rogers. Those in favour? Carried. Questions? Councillor Arthur, I believe you had a question.
yeah. Through you, Mr Mayor, can we clarify what they mean by breakages of glass windows? Is that hit by stones or are we? Okay,
Yes.
so that is that predominantly from mowing or driving on the road or?
Whippersnipping, mowing.
Okay.
Generally,
And so, sorry, through you again, Mr Mayor, that's to our own vehicles or just vehicles in general, public vehicles as well? That covers both?
It would cover both, yes.
Not sure how to phrase it, Mr Mayor. We probably need to be more careful then.
And Mr Mayor, that's why we, at our communication sessions, we spent a fair proportion of time talking about safety and talking about, now that we've got the data on each region, each area, where the problems are and what they need to do to, try and eliminate incidents.
Because it's not only a potential cost to council, it gets our residents off-site too. Damaging their property unneedingly.
I think one thing that come out of that report for me is that where incidents were once considered minor and trivial and were not reported, they are now being reported. So that really makes it look like there's a lot of incidents where every little thing's being reported. So
Correct. And Mr Mayor, that's certainly you don't want to have a zero incidents with people having a culture of non-reporting. So, we're not, we certainly don't want to see that, where we'd rather know what the incidents are, track the trends and then make proactive changes to try and eliminate.
Further questions? 344. Can somebody move that we receive the project progress report? Councillor, sorry, just a second.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, Councillor Plum seconds and we received that report. Councillor Henson seconds. Merson seconds. Plum. Henson. Carried 6-0. Brett.
Mr. Mayor, this is the final report for the 2020 financial year. All the completed projects have been removed from that report. But they have been reported every month during the year. So they're still recorded, but these are the projects that aren't completed or are carried over to the current financial year for completion.
Questions? Councillor Plum.
Brett, how are we going with our solar panels? I've heard a bit around town that he's not returning, so.
Mr. Mayor, the contractor is in town. He returned at the end of June, after being quarantined in New Zealand. He has worked on a project, and on Sunday I received the emails from Ergon Energy for the 10 sites, so that they're ready to be connected. So Ergon has to now visit each of those sites to do the connection.
That's good. It's a bit concerning. And also the bullock shed, how are we going?
Mr. Mayor, the bullock shed is District Manager Barcall that is responsible for that.
Nice flick past to your district manager, I thought, but anyway, we'll give it your best shot, please.
For the dray shed?
Yes, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have spoken with Councillor Carpenter, and with Family Contact, he would like to construct that. Spoken to him this morning. We are arranging a meeting next week. So I've had to speak to the Chief Engineer about his program of works, which we've quickly discussed this morning. So that is a priority on the list. Site's sorted. We have all the approval for the site, so it's the construction that's left.
Thank you.
I'll buy you a very nice bottle of champagne, Councillor Plum, when you no longer have to ask questions about the bullock dray shed. Are there other questions? I might have it for myself, actually, Jenny. It might be more for you and I instead of Councillor Plum.
To you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Plum can probably drink my share.
Right.
I don't drink.
Very good. Any further questions on the progress report? No, done. Councillor Peoples may return. 3, 4, 5. Councillors' detailed maps have been circulated with respect to this. I just want to draw, I asked the question yesterday, we are slightly past the deadline for where we will make this declaration. We were awaiting two things, mapping being the main part of that, and time in the June meeting just didn't work, so we didn't have the mapping earlier than that, and just didn't fit. So yes, we acknowledge that we're slightly outside the time frame required to do this, but however we're doing it today. So
Mr. Mayor, I'd just add to that, which I didn't tell you yesterday, that as part of our budget, we do have water and sewage maps that we've agreed to many years ago. So we do have declared areas, so in a sense we have been complying with this by having a designated area, but the new maps are the new service areas that are included in our LGIP, which Michaela talked about on Monday.
Any questions, councillors? Or if somebody move the resolution?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. So the water service catchments, we don't supply town water outside those areas. Mr. Mayor.
We do, Mr. Mayor. However, I suppose if someone within that catchment, in that designated area requires water, then we have to supply water to them. Whereas if they're outside the area, we can choose whether we supply or not.
Okay, so Mr. Mayor, do these perfectly align with some of the new planning stuff that we're going through or starting to go through on Monday?
Mr. Mayor, as Michaela pointed out on Monday, which may have just slipped through, she did say that once we have decided on the new planning areas, that these LGIP maps may have to be amended to coincide with the planning areas. So we can amend these at any time now that we've done them, but until we... So as part of the new planning scheme, we have a new local government infrastructure plan, which is an LGIP, which has these maps in it, and they will match identically to the new planning areas.
And given that that could be 12 months away though, so we're already 2 months late with this, so we've got to get something in. This does align with current practice, but it doesn't necessarily align with where we're going futuristically. That's right. Anyone outside of those black dotted lines can get water, but we aren't obligated to provide it to them. If they choose to build outside those lines, then they've got to either secure water from us first or have an alternative. And there's also, one of the reasons for that is they build out there, it's a significant cost that wouldn't necessarily be reflected from what we charge for a standard water connection because the length of mains that would be needed to be installed to connect. Councillor Gleeson.
So, Mr. Mayor, the outside, you were saying outside the black line, so like it's at Muddaborough, why isn't the hospital inside that line? Is it only for new residents that are going to build, or it's not existing? These maps, doesn't cover the existing areas.
That once again, there is water provided in all communities outside the black dotted lines.
Yes.
What that black dotted lines is where we are indicating as a council where we're obligated to provide water. If somebody chooses to go up there, we can provide it, but we're not obligated to. We're not obligating ourselves to provide water on the end of mains a long way from town. That's a conversation that we have to have with the proponent. And given everything up there is currently ours anyway, correct report, we own all the land up there, or we manage it in trust, or
Just looking at the Aramac dotted line, Mr. Mayor, if you look where the dotted line sort of comes, includes Booker Street, and then Booker Street runs on down outside the bottom line. If you look at those 5 blocks that are outside the dotted line there, sort of south of Booker Street, that's where the future development for residential blocks were done during Bob Marshall's time as mayor. So that's already planned for any future residential in Aramac, but it's outside the dotted line. Can we change these dotted lines during our planning process?
yeah, that's what we've just said.
When we're going to, okay.
The dotted lines are where the trunk infrastructure is currently is. So people on the periphery may have a service line, but they don't have a trunk water main to that property.
But the dotted line covers a lot more than that, because if you look down in the south east corner of Aramac there, you wouldn't have trunk line anywhere down there. So you've got
Trunk lines are the blue lines, the trunk water mains are blue.
blue line, yeah.
The black dotted line, Brett, reflects the catchment area for water service, so anyone building inside that can be provided water service. I was actually surprised to see all of that land in the southeast inside it, but anyway.
Well, a lot of that country there probably doesn't need to be required, where the other areas that have already been, mapped as housing blocks needs to come inside the line.
I suspect, and I have to confirm, that because that's one parcel of land, that you can't split up a parcel of land. So things like the museum, I'm not sure what, there must be something on that land that is connected to
It's probably like parcel.
Yeah.
It takes in the museum and then goes up.
Yeah, galleons.
So it might only be a water connection right on the edge, but because it's all one parcel of land, they had to map it, include the whole parcel in the plan. But this, as I said, once the planning scheme maps are completed, this will have to match planning scheme maps.
Councillors, the main drive behind this is it's actually for large urban councils who have multiple utilities providers who need not be council. They are obligated to map and indicate who's responsible for the service provision in what area. Out in these remote Western councils, this is just an exercise in bureaucracy, means nothing really, but it is legislated that we have to do this. It will only matter if there's an expansion via a major development and we decide to hand over, for example, in Alpha, either water provision or sewage provision, especially water, if we were to say to the state government, hey, it's your problem, find water for 5,000 residents in Alpha because we can't. So then a major urban water utility, and there's a couple of them, may step in, and then item C in this resolution would change in that we're not the provider for all services within the service area. That's the key. The mapping is important, but the key here is item C. And that's just a declaration of the state that we are the utilities provider for all of these. That's my read of the legislation anyway, Brett. Okay. So, with any further questions? No. Councillor Plum would like to move that resolution. Councillor Rogers is going to second it. Beecher, sorry. All in favour? Carried. Councillor Peoples?
We can change this dotted line during our planning. Yeah, okay.
It will change during the planning.
Yeah.
Because it will mirror the local government infrastructure plan.
Okay.
We can't change it. The irony, so I'll recall the vote in a second. Changing it, Councillor Peoples, now would be preemptive and we'd have to change it anyway. It's going to be 12 months until we develop the local government infrastructure plan and the town plan to indicate future usage. That dotted line, when we adopt that, then we'll move. One of the resolutions will be to reaffirm these same three resolutions that we're adopting today when we do the whole plan scheme, and the mapping then will automatically update.
Reflect those changes.
Correct.
Right.
So I'd be happy to stand on saying that we could move things here or there today, but they're going to have to be moved at some point in the next 12 months. It's item C that's key. We have to signal to the state that we are the service provider for sewage and waste. That's the main thing they want out of today, not the area.
Can someone tag, please, Brett, that we need to look at those lines next time we meet with Michaela? That's also
So the next time we meet, we're actually discussing the local government infrastructure plan, which is this. This is what we're talking about.
I'll recall the vote. Those in favour? Opposed? Carried, 7-0. 346, code of conduct for councils as circulated in the can.
Mr Mayor, this council has a code of conduct for councillors, which the code of conduct is provided by the Minister for Local Government. We've made some changes to that code of conduct, so council is required to adopt those changes.
Councillor Peebles.
I'll move, Mr Mayor.
Moved, Councillor Peebles, second. Councillor Plum.
They are the minister's changes, aren't they?
Yeah, there's nothing. And the main thing is they've taken out all the examples. They have a whole heap of examples.
Sorry, Councillor Plum. No, we'll get to your question. I'm sure Councillor Peebles will be interested in what's been taken out.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, the main change is that under each heading there was a list of examples of what different behaviour, unsuitable conduct or misconduct meant. All those examples have been removed. And there's just some minor wording changes. But probably, Mr Mayor, if councillors read this code of conduct and have that with them, it really lists out all the issues that we've discussed over the last couple of months in the training sessions about what councillors can and can't do. I suppose it's a good summary of the legislation.
Developed by the people who wrote the legislation, not an interpretation of it. Well, even that's still an interpretation, but it's ministerially. This is a ministerial document. They're supposed to be the ones who write the legislation. So it's moved and seconded. Those in favour? Carried. 347, Council House Jericho. Report here is self-explanatory. Discussion before I ask for a mover. Being none, can I have a mover, please? Move to Councillor Plum, seconder. Councillor Gleeson. Those in favour? Carried, 7-0. Financial report. Can I have somebody move we receive the financial report, please? Move to Councillor Peoples, second Councillor Rogers. All in favour? Carried. Correct, you indicated that you had some commentary.
Mr Mayor, the financial report that's provided today is the financial statements up to the 30th of June. So these are the 12 months figures. We haven't provided figures for financial statements for July this year. It's only been a couple of weeks. I thought it was more important that we provide you with an overview of the year that's passed. Now these haven't been audited at this stage, so they're not the final figures, but if you look at page 35, Mr Mayor, the expenditure is 99% of what we budgeted, so I think that's a pretty good result that we've said we've set a budget and we've got pretty close to it, and that's reflected in the figures on page 36 as well. The operating expenses 95% of the budget, and in the statement of cash flows, our payments 98% of our budget. So I it's pretty consistent that in terms of our expenditure, and this is operating expenditure, not capital works, is very much in line with the budget overall. In terms of revenue, even though we've achieved 110% of our revenue, there is substantial monies received in advance. So there is probably our revenue that we predicted is probably not as high as what we would have hoped. In terms of, basic revenues such as your rates, your fees and charges, rates are 99%, fees and charges 100%, rental 91%, so they're all pretty good. The couple of points, the interest received is down, which is understandable given interest rates are virtually non-existent, so that's less than what we budgeted, and our recoverable works or our sales revenue is down. I would probably, looking back at the figures, the area where that shortfall is in our state network money, and I think I know when we budgeted, we budgeted that we would already be started the Barcald and Aramac Road second job, but that's been delayed through not only rain but main roads. Just waiting for them to finalise that job. So
can I just ask a question there, Brett? On that job, we've had it as part of this budget here that we're looking at presently. Looking at the budget that we've just done, is it also calculated in that budget too? So,
which is when it will happen.
I understand when it will happen, but I was sort of hoping that it wasn't calculated in that budget and it might have been a windfall for us, that's all. Yep.
There were some of them, but that wasn't one of them.
Yeah.
So overall, at the end of June, the cash balance was 17.6 million, which is higher than budgeted, but there was monies in advance, which on page 43, I've given you a table with all the grants that we've received for the year. As you can see, if you add them up, there's 53 different grants that we've had to manage for the year, which does, there's a lot of work involved in applying for the grants, then reporting on the milestones, getting the grants acquitted, making sure we do everything right by the government. Then on the far right column is the monies that we've received in advance. So there is, down the bottom, the flood damage, it was $6.8 million at the end of June. Left. So we had to spend 2.3 or something.
2.252.
Yeah.
So Brett, we've spoken about that in advance. We were looking at around that 8 and 9 million, but you've got a figure there of 11.4.
That's not all flood damage though.
No, I understand that, but does that 11.4 need to come off our 17 million cash at bank?
Yes.
So that brings us back to about 6 at cash at bank.
6, something, yeah. We've, Mr. Mayor, as part of our loan application. Because we're going to apply for $2 million loan this current budget year. To achieve that, we have to have a credit review by QTC. So not only are we doing the buyout project with QTC, we've got another team, the credit review team from QTC, working with us on a daily basis to develop a 10-year plan so that they can be sure that it's safe to lend us money. We just about finalised that plan. It's we've got a fairly final version last night, we will have to do that presentation as a council to QTC, like a face-to-face presentation of why we need the money, what our outlook is. So they've helped us develop a PowerPoint presentation that we have to do with all the forecasts in it. But those forecasts do show that while that flood damage money, until that washes through the system, the cash balances will be low, but then it picks up for the final 7 years of that 10-year plan. It will, the cash balance grows consistently through that period. But as I said, that's not final. It's we need to make sure those figures are right. We've also got our asset management consultant on site this week. So he's helping us to get those asset management plans. The asset registers, ensure that they're correct and that the depreciation calculations are appropriate. So hopefully by tomorrow we'll have some definite depreciation calculations for the 10 years, which will feed into that 10-year plan as well.
Mr. Mayor, through you, during the budget process we discussed plant with regards to just purchasing plant and maybe leasing plant. And we didn't get much traction on it, I realise that, but I know other councils are looking at it at the moment. A lot of our plant is held for, I know they're leasing for 4 years to hang on to that major outlay they've got in any 1 year. And I just want to raise it again, is it something that we should be looking at? We keep our plan for much longer than 4 years, and they're paying it off, they're leasing it over the 4 years, paying it off in that 4-year period. I know one other council has just gone into it.
Where we have had that discussion internally, but it hasn't advanced. One of the issues we now have is that Australian Accounting Standards Board has introduced a new leasing standard for accounting purposes, and that comes into effect as of 30th of June this year, which creates a whole new concept of how we treat leases. So leases in terms of, previously leases it'd just been an expense in your books. Now you have to create an asset. So if you lease an item of plant, it has to go in as an asset, and then the lease, the opposite entry is a liability, so it adds to your liabilities as well. So if you lease a grader, say 500,000, you've got to put 500,000 on your assets, but you've also got to add 500,000 to your liabilities.
Is that a problem for us with the low debt that we presently have?
Well, it adds to your debt.
I know that.
So
We took out debt.
well, it depends, Mr Mayor, on how many items of plant you lease, and, you know, that can build up your debt profile.
We've got low debt, but don't forget the state government thinks we've got high debt because they won't borrow to us. The figure of low is relative to those viewing it. It's high enough that they wouldn't give us any more. We're hoping that changes, but the current situation is that we've got too much debt to borrow money. So.
Is that their argument? Because I haven't heard that one before. I just thought they weren't lending money to anyone.
Nah, that's what we know outside, but no, that's the sustainability and the debt repayment capacity of council has always been their reason for not honouring the loans. It's been their formal reasons, formal justification, definitely. Never been anything else. We've known all along that it's the state government not lending money, because they didn't want it attached to their debt, but that's never their official reason.
No. Anyway, I just had a councillor talk to me about it the other day from another council. I just wanted to throw it out there again.
And part of the reason they may be doing that is for flood damage plant recovery, because then they can claim the whole lease payment as on flood damage. I'm not sure if that's the reason, but it is an option, and we have talked about it.
Okay.
But that's as far as it's gone.
Councillors, any other questions on the end year? Remember, they're not audited, but on the statement of financial position won't change. It's certainly the headline figures of it won't anyway.
Mr Mayor, just on some of our expenditure within our infrastructure, and well, there's other ones there, like some of our overspends are 150, 120, 115%.
And you'd like to question?
Oh, not in particular, but just generally, we probably need to be more vigilant on our overspends, whether it was an under budgeting and then basically there's latent conditions in the work. But considering our position with debt and cash at hand and sustainability, and I'm sure the officers are well aware of it, but from our councillor's point of view, we probably need to be continually vigilant with it over the coming years.
Mr Mayor, my comment would be that we're certainly have been focused on the budget for the last 12 months, which is why we've delivered a different result this year to what we have been, and certainly take on board again, there's certain areas in that infrastructure that projects have gone over budget, and we've discussed it before. It's for a whole range of reasons, and it's everything, as far as the procurement policy, weather, redesign costs, a whole range of different things have delivered the results that they have. But we've got very clear direction from council now that we will be flagging, and we will be making all efforts to make sure that jobs don't go over cost this year.
Other questions? We're done. We'll break for a cup of coffee on 10:08 AM, please, Jess.